She looked at me and said my secret out loud. Not a guess, not something you could figure out, something I had never told anyone. And for a second, I just froze. Because there's no way a complete stranger should know something that personal about you. I almost didn't take that flight. In fact, I remember sitting on my bed that morning, staring at my phone, thinking about canceling everything. I was tired, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You know that kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix? That was where I was. Nothing around me was working. Plans I thought would succeed failed. Opportunities I believed were from God disappeared. Doors I prayed for stayed closed. And the worst part, silence. I kept praying. I kept asking. I kept hoping. But it felt like nothing was coming back. No signs, no answers, no direction. Just silence. And slowly, that silence started turning into something else. Doubt. I began to question everything. Was I even being heard? Was I just talking to myself? Was all of this real? Those were the thoughts I carried with me on that flight. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post about it. I didn't share it with friends. But every night, when everything was quiet, I would say the same prayer. God, if you're really there, I need a sign. Not something big, not something dramatic, just something clear, something I couldn't explain away. That was all I asked for. So when I got to the airport that day, I wasn't expecting anything. I was just trying to get through the day. The plane wasn't full. That's one thing I remember clearly. There were empty seats, people scattered around, quiet. I found my seat, sat down, put on my headphones, and tried to disappear into my own world. I didn't want conversation. I didn't want interaction. I just wanted silence. A few minutes later, someone sat next to me. I didn't look immediately, just a quick glance. A woman, calm, normal, nothing unusual. She didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Just that shared silence between two strangers pretending not to notice each other. And honestly, I was fine with that. Until she turned, looked directly at me, and said, "You've been asking God for a sign." Everything in me stopped. My first thought was, no, that's not possible. Because that wasn't general. That wasn't vague. That wasn't something you just say randomly. That was exact. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just stared at her, trying to understand what I had just heard. And then she said, "And you're tired, because it feels like he's not answering." At that point, my chest felt tight. Because that wasn't just true. That was exactly how I felt. Not what I showed people, not what I pretended to be, but the real truth, the part no one sees. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Because how do you respond to something like that? How do you explain that someone just spoke your private thoughts out loud without ever knowing you? I started looking around. Maybe this was a prank. Maybe someone told her. Maybe there was an explanation. But there wasn't. And then she said the one thing I will never forget. "He heard you." She paused, then looked at me again and said, "He just needed you to trust him a little longer." I don't know how to explain what happened in that moment, but something inside me shifted. Not outside, nothing physically changed, but inside, everything did. Because suddenly, that silence I had been feeling didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like something had been happening all along. Like I wasn't being ignored, I was being prepared. I didn't even realize I had tears in my eyes until I tried to wipe them away. And when I turned to say something, anything, she was quiet again, like nothing had happened. No conversation, no explanation, no follow-up, just silence. The rest of the flight, we didn't speak again. And when the plane landed, I looked around, and she was gone. No goodbye, no name, no trace. Just gone. I sat there for a moment, trying to process everything, because logically, none of it made sense. But emotionally, it made perfect sense, because it was exactly what I needed. Not what I expected, not what I imagined, but exactly what I needed. And that's when I realized something. Sometimes, the answer you're waiting for doesn't come the way you expected. It doesn't come loud. It doesn't come obvious. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in a moment you didn't plan, through a person you don't know, at a time you least expect. And if you're not paying attention, you might miss it. But I didn't miss it. And ever since that day, I stopped asking, "Are you listening?" Because now I know, he always was.